I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. This is Rick Del Santo. You're listening to the PWZ podcast. I've got my good buddy here, Harry Davila of Blood, Sweat, and Tears Wrestling. We're going to be talking about a lot of professional wrestling today,
Yes.
as we did for about an hour before we hit that live button. So, what's going on, my friend?
Nothing much, man. Enjoying a beautiful Tuesday night in Bridgeport. Getting ready for the Two Roads Star Spangled Bash by BST Wrestling on July 1st, Two Road Brewery. I'm super excited for this show. Super, super excited.
Yeah, and I'm excited you're going to be in Two Roads. I'm a I'm a big fan of their product. I will tell you that.
Yeah.
So there are many products, I should say.
I had a passion fruit beer a couple days ago, and it was like delightful. Very delightful.
I really like their Road to Ruin beer.
Ooh.
They're double IPA. So I am an IPA nerd. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. That's it. Oh, I'm a beer snob, according to my wife. So, and I take pride in that. So,
hey, take pride in it, man. You like what you like.
We went to a party. We went to a party over the weekend, and they had nothing too delicious, I should say. And my wife's like, "Nah, he's kind of a beer snob." To everybody that was there, as a friend of hers. So.
Throwing you under the bus.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know where I got this guy from. He doesn't drink Coronas.
Nope, not at all. Oh, I will never drink that. Nah, I'm good.
See, I wasn't spoiled with beer or that type of alcohol when I was younger. So I only got into beer when I was late 20s, and Corona was the first thing that anybody ever showed me. So it's kind of that's all I know.
Yeah, no, I get you. I mean, I drink Pabst for probably 2 decades.
Blue ribbon guy. Cardona would be proud.
Yeah. So you got a big show coming up on July 1st, Two Roads Brewery. I'm excited. Like I said, I'm a big fan of their products, and it's a couple matches that you've announced already.
Yeah. We got a debut. We got some intergender stuff, which I think is going to be a lot of fun. Kind of touching back on the Elevate show, Dan kind of stole a victory from Montequilla in the three-way, earning his title shot at the territory championship. And Montequilla, I think he got the short end of the stick. So he got one of his friends. Dan's bringing one of his friends, and we got a good old-fashioned tag match happening at the Two Road show. That's going to be a good one. I'm very excited for that match for a lot of reasons.
Yeah. I'm looking at that right now. I don't know if you want to mention it or not, but I want to make sure I have the right information. You haven't updated it, right?
So, no.
Yeah. It's Dan the Man and Brother Greatness with Stan Michael.
Yes, in their corner versus La Chica Clara Carreras and Montequilla. So, this was, some little heat there from what happened at the Elevate show. It's going to be a fun one.
Montequilla,
man. That guy
is awesome.
That guy is smooth, to say the least.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very smooth. And then we announced it a couple days ago. The main event for Two Roads will be Ichiban defending his territory championship against a debuting Your Mom, Bobby Orlando. And I am so excited for that.
I'm very excited. Yeah, I'm very excited, and I told you that at one point that was my son's favorite wrestler.
Yeah.
So, that's he's going to be excited to see that once if we can make it to the show, which I think we should.
Actually, one of my best friends, that's his favorite wrestler too. So when BST announced it, I promptly got a text with heart emojis and happy faces. So I'm very excited that Bobby Orlando's making a debut for us.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that this is going to be a wild crowd. And usually when there's beer and wrestling involved, it's always a positive.
The best crowd.
Yes.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Two Roads is opening their beer garden to us, their garden area. It's plenty of space, plenty of I believe food trucks will be available. Um, there's just gonna be a really really wild fun night. I'm looking very much forward to it. And if you haven't been to a BST show, Rick, you've been to some. You know, you've heard from others about others. You don't want to miss these shows. You
You
don't want to miss these
definitely do
shows.
not, because trust me, I've been to enough of them. There are some that I miss, but I do watch them.
Hmm.
You do get them on
Hmm.
up on your YouTube, so trust me, I do watch them.
Yeah.
And this company is a top-notch company right here out of
Thank
Connecticut. I'm
you.
not blowing smoke at Harry or kissing ass or nothing like that, because we have a lot of professional wrestling in the state of Connecticut, and
Yeah. We're in a
BST
boom
is,
period.
yeah, absolutely. BST is definitely one of the top companies uh, in the state.
I appreciate that. We're trying, man. We're trying
Yeah.
to give everybody something a little different every time that we put a show on. And like you said, that we're in a boom period. There's so much good professional wrestling in this Northeast area. We talked about it last time. The many companies that are
Hmm.
out here, putting on ridiculously good shows with a lot of great performers. And again harkens back to like that really really golden era of independent wrestling in the early 2000s. Like
Yeah.
I don't remember the indies being as hot as they are right now, and it's just cool to be to have a little part in it.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think the last time we were speaking that there was something like 6 or 7 companies
Yeah,
in the
and they're all
state.
booming, and they're
Yeah.
all
Well,
booming.
we're -1 now, but we're not going to get into that story. So,
Regardless of that,
yeah, we
you
are.
know,
Everybody's on fire right now.
yeah,
Everybody's
everybody's on
drawing.
fire.
Connecticut has an amazing amount of talent,
Yes,
literally in the state of Connecticut,
yes,
and people want to see professional wrestling. And
yeah,
it's not just
absolutely.
guys like us. There is a certain amount of fans out there that are really, really into it, and it's just an awesome thing to see.
It's cool to see like when like you go to different shows and you see the diversity even in the crowds. Like
Yeah,
a Tesla Strength card is going to be different from uh NEW crowd. NEW crowd is going to be different from the BST crowd. BST crowd is going to be different from PAPW crowd. So on and so forth. CPW, Blitzkrieg, Limitless, Grind, so on and so forth with all these different promotions. And being one who's been in the crowd for a lot of these different promotions, it's cool to see it. It's cool to see like how like again reiterating how diverse the crowds are for each company. They have like
right,
their own fan base, and you wouldn't think wrestling is like that where you now have 7 8 companies and each one of their companies is like completely different when it comes to their fans.
right. Each one has their own crowd. That's just
And
like,
that and it's just cool. It's cool to see. I know I probably reiterated myself like 3 times saying the same thing, but the point is more like, you know, you don't think there's that many wrestling fans out here. NEW in Bethany is out here selling out every show
right.
usually. You know, uh, Tessa Strength doing their thing up in the Waterbury area, always packing out the building, selling out the crowd. Like everybody's hitting, and I love it. I love it. I love it.
We're,
PAPW,
yeah,
was selling out what three straight shows.
yeah, yeah. They
Full
were.
Avenue, and then
Yeah,
good for them. Good for
yeah,
them.
yeah, man. And they've got another big show coming up,
Yeah,
which we'll talk
with
about down the road.
Recharge.
Yeah, Recharge. I have the lineup somewhere over here.
Yeah,
That's going to be a good show, though. It's got. I mean, it's an amazing amount of talent that's going to be on that show.
yeah. You got Brian Malonis, who is a Northeast, heavyweight standout. You got Becca, who is one of the top premier women's athletes in this area, and I would say this whole like coast. Like they got who? They got Troy Stevens, Lucas Chase is on that card, and I can talk for hours about Lucas Chase.
Colossal Mike Law is going to be there. Who's that guy's an amazing talent there.
Yeah, absolutely. They're putting on some fire, man. Again, good for them. Tattoo Pro has a show coming up. That's another company that doesn't get enough love.
I think they've only ran a handful of shows, so they're still relatively new, and they're doing a larger building from what I see. Yeah,
they're doing a larger building, but if I'm being honest, the building adds to the atmosphere that is Tattoo Pro.
Okay,
I will say that. I went to the last show that they had where it was Sammy Diaz and Lucas Chase, and I had a really, really good time, and I got to see some people who I don't see on a normal everyday basis. And I was very impressed with what I saw. They put on a really good card. There's a lot of good, emphasizing there's a lot of good wrestling out here, and I'm glad everybody's eating. I love it. Yeah, man. I love it.
Yeah, I guess that there's just so much now. It's just I don't remember a time where there was this many organizations in the state. Literally, I came up in the 1990s, as a fan, and there's probably one company based in Connecticut I think of, maybe two. Nothing too crazy, and
you would always
now
get
it's just on fire.
You would always get these one-off companies like a CCW or like a SCW or something with some weird lettering that'll be around for 2 shows and they'll never run again. You'll always get that.
Connecticut Championship Wrestling, they were in the earlier 2000s. They were around for probably a couple of years. They did run a handful of shows. There was the NAWF, I remember. Northeast, obviously. Yeah, Northeast, obviously, was there. They're about 30 years now, or close to it. I'm trying to think. Was there Atlantic Coast Wrestling or something like that? Yeah, man, there was just a lot. Yeah, there wasn't that many, but a lot of them would come in and out.
Who ran Brian Danielson, versus Kamala? Who ran
that? Was Liberty States Wrestling, which at one point was an NWA territory. And here's a fact: I was there. That was in Bridgeport at
at the Cardinal
what was the building? Yeah, I was there for that, and that's the reason why I went was that, and the Midnight Express and Rock and Roll Express were on the show as well.
So I remember I was too young to kind of figure out how to get to the Cardinal Shield Center from where I was. I was in Bridgeport, but I don't remember. I knew of Brian Danielson, from watching tapes, and that was later on. I want to say he was the champ at the time. It's just around 2008. I want to say I was just either working or I just didn't know how to get to the Shield Center at the time. But I remember seeing that and going, why would I watch that? As a fan.
Yeah.
I don't know any better. I know better now, but as a fan, I'm I wouldn't go pay to see that. But it's one of those things where I remember it because of the moment. Who booked that?
Yeah, I thought it was weird at first too, and then I saw it, and it ended up being way better than I could ever imagine.
Really?
They went all. It's on YouTube. That's the only match from that show I could find online. I'll send it to you later. I'll send it to you. It's definitely worth the watch. We'll say that. They go all over it, and you wouldn't have think that it was going to be nearly as good as it was. It's just I thought it was a really that's not the match that got me there. It was Midnight Express and Rock and Roll Express that got me there because they went on beforehand. And I'm sitting there in the crowd, and all of a sudden, before the show starts, I just see Bobby Eaton walking by. I'm like, oh shit, there's Bobby Eaton. I'm still marking out. And I'm probably 30 at the time. So
I would mark out for beautiful Bobby.
Yeah.
Best leg drop, best top rope, leg drop and knee drop. Man, that top rope knee drop. Whew.
The weird part about that show is you're gonna not notice it by watching the video. There was nobody there. Literally. The place was so empty it was ridiculous. And it was a rather larger gym, auditorium, gymnasium, whatever.
Yeah, it's a bit.
Crowbar was on the show actually. Devin Storm Crowbar was actually on the show as well. Now that I remember, because I remember, yeah.
I got to see him last weekend.
Yeah, it looks like a bigger building. Like it looked like a bigger crowd than it actually was while watching that video. So,
Wrestling fans, promoters, wrestlers, and anyone who enjoys pro wrestling now have something new to be excited about. The Wrestling Fans International Association, the WFIA, is back. WFIA is an association that exists to promote, grow, and support professional wrestling throughout the world. Membership is free. Your membership includes a free digital bi-monthly publication of the Wrestling Fan News newsletter, association updates, voting privileges, and much more. Please go to thewfia.org, that's THEWFIA.org, and become a member today.
I got to see Crowbar on that 80s show that I went to last week in Jersey. Last week or the week before? Week before?
okay.
Yeah, week before.
You went to the 80s con, right? You said?
Yes.
Yeah.
I got to see him and David Boy Smith tear it down, man. And dude, he's been around 96, 97, still kicking ass, man. I was so happy with what I saw.
It's funny, the first time I ever saw him was at a show for that very promoter in New Jersey, probably 95-ish, probably 95, 96. Me and my friends drove up there, and it was an NWA show, Dennis Corluzzo's NWA.
Ooh, that's a name.
Yeah, right? And we went up there, and there he is. It was him and Ace Darling as a tag team.
Oh, yeah.
You remember him? Yeah. So, yeah, man, it's Devin Storm's been around for quite some time, and he's still very good.
Looks great.
He does.
Amazing.
Yeah.
He looked amazing. I'll say it. I don't care. That was the match of the night.
Really?
Him and Davey Boy Smith was the match of the night for me.
That's awesome.
And like you had some talent on that card. The ladies 5-way was really good too. With Mimi, Vicious Vicky, Tina San Antonio, Gabby, and slipping on the last name, but they you can tell. I think maybe Danny Moe, maybe. I know I saw her, but you can tell that they really that they were really going out there to put on a show.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a pretty cool little 5-way.
I watched a good portion of the weekend on IWTV. It all streamed up there.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing stuff, man. It was a lot of fun, and I wished I was there. I forgot why I wasn't. I think I worked on Saturday, and then I got home and I just noticed that it was up there. So, and then I turned it on. But yeah, and then of course on camera, I'm going to say this to you. So our little pal there, you went up with him, Caesar, right there on camera, ringside.
Caesar was doing photography, and it was just cool to be around all these guys who paved the way for what we have a little part in now. Guys like the Powers of Pain, Paul Roma, Sergeant Slaughter, like these guys who we were watching on our TVs, man, they're literally like feet away from me. Bret Hart, and it was just cool to just be there. I'd never done one of those before. Like really? I've done Access, but Access is so commercialized and like it just doesn't have like that. I'm trying to look for the words, but it doesn't have the heart that these 80s cons, 80s wrestle cons have.
So the era that we grew up on, and it's I'm in awe every time I go, no matter, and I'm going to be 50, and it's just one of those things, and I can't help it, my love for the business, my love for that era. Mm-hmm. You're sitting there. There's the Powers of Pain in ring against the Now and the Headbangers, and so I'm like, they're combining all these different eras together. And,
it was like 80s, early 90s, Attitude Era, and like current stuff, all in one tag team jambalaya.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It was just, it seems so awesome to have been there, and I wish I kind of could have made it there.
It was cool. It was cool, and what made it that like, so that weekend was awesome, but for other reasons as well. Outside of the '80s, kind of, you saw Backlash and how awesome that show was.
I didn't get a chance to talk about that on this show, by the way, Backlash.
So
And
let's talk about it.
yeah, man, I got to tell you, from start to finish, that crowd was on fire. I've never seen a
On
WWE crowd
fire.
that, but then again, they were in a completely different area that they're not used
Yeah.
to. You know what I mean?
Uh, as a Puerto Rican born on the island, born and bred from the sands of Puerto Rico, as they say, um, to watch that show, I got into the hotel room just as Zelina Vega was coming out.
Mhm.
And to see her decked out in full Puerto Rican, gear, extend her arms, to see the Puerto Rican flag waving proudly as a cape, majestically, floating down the aisle, man, gave me such pride. And to hear the crowd give her a standing ovation just for entering the ring, just because she was one of us,
The emotion
that,
on her face during
yeah,
the introduction and the crowd reaction, she had trouble holding it in, and
I had
good
trouble
for
holding
her
it
though.
in.
You know what I mean? It
Like,
was one of those things you're watching it and you just gotta smile, man, because she's so
yeah,
proud right there.
yeah, dude, and she killed it. She killed it. She had the crowd. She had the crowd for a couple seconds there, thinking she was gonna take home the gold. And imagine that crowd had she won that title.
Right?
It would that building would have the roof would have exploded. The standing ovation she got from the Puerto Rican people, almost like you fought for us and you did us proud. Stuff, moments like that, man. And then fast forward, Bad Bunny, Bad Bunny, that guy is great.
That match right there it was longer than I expected, but they had the
They
fans wrapped up. Man, they
the
had the fans
whole time.
so into it the whole time. You're right.
I was talking to Caesar, and I told him, I was like, it's a love letter to Puerto Rican wrestling.
Yeah.
It was a love letter. You had, all your old your spots, like the Bad Bunny kind of like comeback was very old school Puerto Rican style. Carlito coming out, you know, Savio Vega coming out to the crowd, the reaction he got.
The crowd went absolutely nuts when Savio Vega came out, and I don't even think the crowd going nuts is the proper term, because literally, if that, like, I thought the roof was going to blow off.
Yeah,
Like,
yep.
I've literally in the last, like, what's it, March, May, the last 5 months, I've heard that reaction twice. Sammy turned on the bloodline,
Uh-huh.
and when Savio Vega walked out in Puerto Rico, like,
Dude,
the crowd literally
losing it.
erupted.
Losing it. They were chanting Theo Savio, which, if you're following the wrestling in Puerto Rico, that is what he dubbed himself in
Right.
the later years of his career. So to hear that, to hear every time Bad Bunny would punch Damian Priest, hooah, hooah, hooah. That's all. That's all that old school '80s, early '90s Puerto Rico stuff. And man, it gave me such goosebumps. Such goosebumps, man. I told anybody who was willing to listen that if
Yeah.
WWE runs in Puerto Rico again, I will be there. I don't care what I have to do. I will be there. Because that I would have loved to have been there and been a part of that electricity that night.
I literally have, this late, as of late, in the WWE, I have not been able to necessarily pay attention to the Raw or SmackDown. It's just
Yeah.
doesn't do it for me. That's okay though. I don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
But I watch the pay-per-views, and the pay-per-views this year have been one after another.
Stellar.
Great, 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 great shows.
Stellar.
And that Backlash was probably the greatest pay-per-view I've seen this year. Literally, they're getting better and better as they go on.
I I wouldn't say it's the pay-per-view of the year.
I mean, we're only 5 months in.
I really, yeah, but if I'm giving, like, if I had to choose right now, I still would give it to Mania because Mania, top to bottom, was a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
But from an emotional and bias standpoint, Backlash is the show of the year.
Yeah, I thought it was phenomenal, literally. And there's like so many great moments. And, the crowd was a lot more tame during the main event, but they told a story like during that thing. So it wasn't the same kind of reaction, but they told a beautiful story.
Yeah, everything was just a hit. Everything hit, and I think that on top of the crowd was definitely the all-star that day. There's
Yeah.
no touching that crowd.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
There's a lot of cool stuff happening, you know, with wrestling and like all these different like I guess partnerships that are happening, intertwining. Like you have like Impact working with New Japan, who's also working with All Elite Wrestling, who's also working with AAA, who is working with like all these other promotions, and it's cool to see all these different things happening that didn't happen before.
That you say that, there was a couple years that I didn't watch wrestling, and I've said that before on the program, so I'm not going to get into the story as to why, because I've told it a million times, but I got pulled back in 2018 after like 2 years, maybe 3. But when I came back, it's one of those things where it was, why am I seeing this guy on this TV, but he's also on this TV? You know what I mean? Like, back when growing up, we wouldn't see a guy on, say,
No,
NWA TV and then see him on WWF TV. Here's a guy on
that,
Impact, and then, oh my God, he's on AEW as well. Or it doesn't happen. It's incredible to literally
yeah,
think, or MLW and stuff like that.
that's
It's
another
just,
one.
yeah, and a very underrated company, I might add.
Yeah,
But it's just incredible that all that kind of stuff, like all these companies are intertwining these days. Growing up, we're going to see somebody on AWA TV and then show up on WWF TV for the belt. You know what I mean? It's not going to happen that way. Everything was
no,
way different. And excuse me, for the longest time, it just seemed like WWF TV was not taking a part in it. It was every other company.
no.
So,
WWE that doesn't really do well with partnerships, from what I saw. Even with like when they were taking over the indies and having
yeah,
like stuff like Progress and Evolve, be a part of the network, it still wasn't to the extent that I felt it could have been. And I also think that could have been also up to the pandemic. Because the
yeah,
pandemic ruined a lot of things that were probably on the work for a lot of those companies. But like you said, to see like, and we'll use Christian Cage as an example. Um, he would come on. He was on AW. He would pin Kenny Omega for the Impact World Title, and then show up on Impact and defend it against Josh Alexander. Like that
yeah.
type of stuff wasn't happening. Jeff Cobb. Jeff Cobb would be doing New Japan, do the G1, and then all of a sudden challenging John Moxley for like the U.S. title on a random episode of Dynamite. Look
And
at
at the same
Vikingo.
time, was on, while they were still in existence, Ring of Honor TV. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, before that faded out entirely. Yeah,
Yep. Everybody was doing a little bit of everything, and
yeah,
like it's cool. It's cool because like it's really like you don't know who's gonna show up where.
yeah. It's incredible, literally.
Yeah.
It's just, and then NWA was guilty of, not guilty, but you know what I mean, guilty of it too. They'd be like, especially during the pandemic, what was it, or during their Empowered pay per view. The hell's Camille showed up on AEW
Yeah.
TV
Yep.
briefly, and then boom, it's like, and then that's how Thunder Rosa was back and forth between NWA and AEW for a brief period as well.
Yep. Before and she's coming back right around the corner.
Yeah,
Their women's division. That speaking of Camille, there's a lot of like we were talking about women. With Becca, coming doing a couple big shows up here in Connecticut. But there's a lot of really, really good women out here as of late, and the the influx of women's professional wrestling over the last few years is incredible.
You know, it became really popular probably like 4 years ago, maybe 5.
Yeah.
But you know, a lot of things when they become popular and they start to die down after a while, women's wrestling just keeps rising and rising.
Yeah.
When growing up, you'd be lucky if you saw a women's match on Raw or
Yeah.
something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then it turned into the Divas era where there was always one. But now you can't get a show without at least 2 or 3 women's matches on a show.
Hi, this is Bob Smith. You might remember me from my years at Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine. Now I've started a brand new podcast called The Outdated Wrestling Hour.
Who make
yes, we're going to take a whimsical look back at the wrestling figures,
and
stars, and trends from years gone by. We're talking 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and a whole lot more. There's going to be laughs, there's going to be fun, there's going to be action, you name it.
I look at a card.
Please tune in for the Outdated Wrestling Hour, wherever you get your podcasts.
Big, good women's matchup lined up.
Read about the Northern Wrestling Federation in the book presented by Russellville.com, The Pro Wrestling Vault, Volume 2. Hear the story of Roger Ruffin, the man who trained Carl Anderson, the Monster Abyss, Jordan Clearwater, Chris Harris, and Jillian Hall.
Plus 45 other short stories, including Jazz, Bobby Eaton, Kamala, Thunder Rosa, Mario Mancini, Scott Casey, PJ Black, Kerry Morton, Sal Renaro, Jeremiah Plunkett, Colby Carino, Bam Bam Malone, and many others.
Get your book today at Russellville.com. Russellville. It's where wrestling lives.
Other than Japan, when was the last time you turned on wrestling in the Northeast and you saw all the major wrestling companies have a women's division?
Never. Yeah.
Look at it across the board. Indies, you have your like Megan Bain. Again,
I think if I could just cut you off right there for a minute, Megan Bain is another one that she's not signed very soon. There's something wrong with the system because she is an amazing, amazing talent. I saw her come back at Northeast about 2 months ago, maybe. And she didn't work a match. She came out uninterrupted, but I got to tell you, holy shit, dude. I've seen her many times where she's
just a presence.
The women's Super 8, just her she's a great in-ring performer. There's just something about her, man. She's got that it.
Mm-hmm. So Megan Bain obviously is the first person I named, is just a phenomenal athlete. She's just a specimen of a woman. And the way she just wrestles, just throwing these women around is just impressive. Extremely impressive. Then you got, we spoke about her earlier, Becca, Vita Von Star, Clara Carreras, Notorious Mimi, JC Storm, Janai Kai. I can keep going and going and going. These women all over, the United States. Masha Slamovich, GCW World Champion Masha Slamovich. I love hearing those things, man. It used to be so unheard of in wrestling, and to see everybody be included in some way, shape, or form, whether it be like a woman holding a world championship, not a female world championship, but a world championship that everybody's holding. That's fucking awesome. We never had that before.
It's kind of weird to me in a way,
Why?
It's why I'm not used to it. And it's nothing against the lady. It's nothing against the lady. I'm not, that's not my style. I'm not a huge fan of intergender wrestling. You shouldn't. I don't know if we've ever had that discussion before. As long as I've
never
known you.
had that discussion, but it's each their own.
Yeah, I mean, there's various different styles of professional wrestling. I've pretty much, it's kind of funny that we've never had that discussion. I've pretty much made it very well known during this program over the years, but it's just not my thing. I don't,
okay.
I feel that, I don't want to see a guy whooping on a woman. I've come from a household where my mother was abused by my biological father. I just don't. And some people will take that as I'm crazy. Fine, that's okay, whatever.
No, because I understand it.
Yeah.
Like I can hear you, like where you're going with that, like because I was raised on those like ideologies too, like you're not supposed to hit a woman and such and such.
Yeah.
But I think in this day and age where equality is one of the more controversial topics, I guess, out here in the old United States of America, seeing a woman, not be gender specified and being held on the same platform as a guy, I think it's fucking cool, man. It's cool and it's empowering.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't take any of the credit away or talent away from the women.
Oh,
and I don't care if they want to put like a women's match headlining, more power to them. You know what I mean? I've been to pay-per-views where they've had the women headlining. You know what I mean? I didn't walk out. You know what I mean? I'm a huge fan of women's wrestling. I mean, the wrestling as a whole, I should say. There's just certain things that I guess prefer.
And again, that's okay. Like, me, letting anybody know how I feel is not for me to change anybody's mind about it. By all means, you like what you like. Everybody's allowed to like what they like, regardless of what Twitter or any social space tells you. If you're not into intergender wrestling, who the fuck am I to shame you into watching it? That's dumb.
Yeah.
That's dumb, and that's even more ignorant than saying like something along the lines like a guy shouldn't fight a girl. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that's what you're saying per se. You're just not used to it, and that's not your cup of tea. That's fine.
Just like deathmatch wrestling is not my cup of tea either. Yeah, I refuse to watch any of that kind of crap.
Like I can watch some deathmatch stuff, but I can't. Like the tournaments of death, even for me, are a little too tough to watch. And like all the like Mexican deathmatch stuff, like the Zona 23 stuff. Yeah, it's too much for me.
And don't get me wrong. When I was growing up, in the 1990s, when that thing was still kind of new, I watched a little bit of it. You know what I mean? But it's nothing that I seeked out. You know what I mean?
No,
or said, "Oh, we got to catch this," because it's just then it just became way more common and I guess outlaw in a way.
It is more common. It's becoming more mainstream. And that's where it gets a little weird because it used to be an underground thing. Like Cage of Death used to be, again, being old indie lovers here, CZW had the Cage of Death.
Right.
I think that's the farthest I would go as far as like gimmicky death matches go. Like I couldn't see the Tournament of Death because to see somebody inject themselves with a needle.
I've seen that before, but did you also see was an XPW show a couple months ago where somebody, now you know where I'm going with this, where somebody injected a guy in the penis with a syringe, and I'm sitting here like,
why?
This is trash. It's garbage, man. I just can't get into it.
I gotta find the clip. And I gotta make sure I send it to you. I saw a clip the other day, deathmatch stuff. And the stupidity of some of this stuff.
Yeah.
He shot a nail gun into a dude's head.
Jesus Christ. If that went in for like a certain,
Like from up here. Like, are you
You're just waiting. Like if that went through the skull, you get what I'm saying. That's just crazy.
You got paid $35, guy. $35, my guy. That's what you got. Yeah. That's what you want to do. $35.
I'm a fan of good old-fashioned storytelling. I'm a fan of professional wrestling, and a lot of things just don't qualify like deathmatch stuff as professional wrestling to me. There, I said it.
Hey, and that's okay. Like, I don't disagree with you. Like, there's got to be a reason for it. Like, if you have a long storyline, and you need a match to its finality of the story, then maybe a good death match might,
there's a difference between like a huge blow off between like something like a cage match or a street fight or no rules tape fist match, what have you. You know what I mean? There's a difference. Injecting people with needles or shoving a dildo up somebody's ass. It's what's the brain capacity of the people that are watching it and they're getting enjoyment out of it?
Like, I don't know. I couldn't even answer that. I've seen so much of like the crazy deathmatchy stuff when I was younger that like I just can't. How are you not getting more? I saw a guy squirt his arm right around like the cup of like the elbow, squirt the blood into his mouth. Why? It's gross.
Now I know you probably saw this. There was a couple years ago where it was out in Russia, I believe it was, where there was like a flaming branding iron, and somehow part of the ring ended up on fire, and then the guy's clothes landed on fire, and then of course it burnt his leg up. And
no, I did not.
It was like just the guy's scarred for life now.
I actually saw something with a flip with people are so dumb. Guy military presses a guy, right? Ultimate Warrior style. The referee lights the guy on fire. I'm gonna the referee lights the guy on fire, which I don't understand that whatsoever. And then he launches the guy out of the ring, hits the table, but the table doesn't break, and he's just on fire.
I see no point in that. I'm sorry. I don't see any point in that. Yeah.
Why?
To me, there's always got to be a story. You can't do stuff for the sake of doing it, I
mean, Spike Dudley went through like 1,800 flaming tables. I mean, I don't know. I don't understand it.
Yeah, no, me neither. And that's probably when a company like Ring of Honor came around that, a wrestling company, a wrestling company. And man, they were so different. Yeah.
Like you would go to a Ring of Honor show, you guys came out, shook each other's hand, and then went on to wrestle for like 25 minutes. And then there would be a fair winner, and you shake that man's hand. And it was like, oh, this is some real shit. This is fucking dope.
Yeah.
And like, I think we talked a little bit about it last time. Guys like Chad Collier, BJ Whitmer, Matt Stryker, the Unibrow.
There was Nigel McGuinness was there,
Hurricane John Walters.
Oh God, man, that guy was great. Xavier, let's not forget Xavier. Low-Key,
Christopher Daniels, like the who's who of fucking independent wrestling. And then like I was talking to my friend JR the other day, and we were talking about the Motor City Machine Guns, and he was asking me like why I was a big Shelley fan. And I remember the first time I saw Shelley, it was during a Wrestle Rave 4-way. It's him, Jimmy Jacobs, I want to say BJ Whitmer, and who was the fourth? Oh my God, I can't. It's gonna slip my mind, but it was a fourth. It might have been Frankie. I could be wrong, but I remember seeing Shelley and going, "Holy shit, this guy's really good, really good." And we were talking a little bit about it. And Shelley's one of those guys where he's been everywhere, and never got the main title, and I don't understand why. Because like he was the guy that transitioned Ring of Honor and from the our video, the Feinstein Ring of Honor, all the way to like that Kerry Silken Ring of Honor. He was one of the many bridges of that gap between the two different eras, especially with Generation Next. Him, Aries, Roderick, and Evans. You know, that whole, and that they helped with that transition period when guys like AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels, went over to TNA because TNA was like, with Feinstein doing what he's doing, you guys can't wrestle there, man. They left.
They wanted to charge RF a booking fee, TNA. And then they weren't having anything about it. And then I guess, what was it? Roderick Strong missed a show and somebody else because I guess of a snowstorm. I remember that happening. But I guess that's the last time they used them, or at least one of the last times that they used them. So, but that was another interesting part. You would see guys there, then you'd see them on Ring of Honor TV, or Ring of Honor. The Ring of Honor didn't have TV at the time, but you would see them at Ring of Honor shows, which was considered a somewhat large company. It was still making its trail, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it was still kind of like, it was still in its crawling stage.
Yeah, putting on phenomenal shows, by the way.
Yes, yeah, there was a lot of good. The early 2000s stuff was a lot of good stuff through and through. But going back to what you say, seeing these guys, and then seeing them in Ring of Honor, for me it was almost like vice versa. So I would see these guys in Ring of Honor, and then I finally found out about TNA, and then all of a sudden I'm watching them on Fox Sports Net when they got the TV deal. So you would see go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. We'll talk about that in a second.
Because I remember I was watching. I want to say it was around that Samoa Joe losing the title to Austin Aries era of Ring of Honor, and then all of a sudden I'm seeing Roderick Strong and Alex Shelley and Aries on Impact in the 6-man, and I'm like, oh, holy shit! Like, when the hell did these guys come in?
Right.
And I think that was about as early. The only thing that was really going on as far as talent trading.
One of the things I remember you were talking about when TNA was on the Fox Sports or whatever the fuck it was, Fox something.
3:30 on a Friday.
I remember being so excited, and then it was 3:30 on a Friday. What?
Yeah.
Like, okay. I had to set my VCR because I was working. It's like, this is ridiculous. And then I just remember watching, I don't know how many episodes of here. I don't think that those episodes are up on Impact Plus either, the network that they have. I don't think it's up there.
I don't know. I'd have to check.
Yeah. But I just remember it, and there was nothing to it.
No.
Legitimately. There was no stories that were worth. They were still going back and forth between the weekly pay-per-views, and it was nothing. It was kind of crappy, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So, I still remember the first show had AJ win the X Division title because they had just taken the heavyweight title away from him to put it back on Jeff Jarrett because Jeff Jarrett wanted to be the head of the company for when they jumped over to Fox Sports because he's a name. And I'm like, that's dumb. That's dumb.
As much as I love Jarrett, but he did not make the best decisions sometimes when it came to booking.
He didn't. Yeah. Having AJ in that prime position where now you have a new TV company backing up your wrestling promotion, why not have a young guy who you can put the company on his back like an AJ Styles? He's going to carry it and could potentially be the future of this company, but you hinder him so you can put Jarrett on TV. Smart. That's smart right there.
Yeah. And then they ended up losing that deal, and then they suffered for a while. I loved the weekly pay-per-views for a very long time. I thought they were great.
Yeah.
$10 a week, and so 2 hours each. It was, it added up. But of course, I had the Scrambler, so that worked. But I started watching from the 4th episode forward because I think me and my ex-wife had moved into a new apartment, and we just got cable into the apartment, and then I was scrolling through the guide, and it's an NWA pay-per-view. What the hell is this? Me being an NWA guy growing up, kind of out of the loop a little bit. So then I bought it immediately, and I fucking fell in love with it. I was like, this is amazing. So they were really putting on some great shows in those early days.
I remember the weekly pay-per-views. I had DirecTV at the time, and they used to do these like I think it was called like penny weeks, where like the show would be like a penny for like that week.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, it's a penny. My mom's not gonna fucking notice a penny, So I would buy the pay-per-view, and I remember it was the first time I got to see Chris Harris and James Storm.
America's Most Wanted. Yeah.
Yep. And it was it was Quiet Storm versus the Briscoes. Yeah, Divine Storm versus the Briscoes. That's all I remember. The
Briscoes did not look like the Briscoes of the day, the modern era. They looked shaved head, red. I think we talked about this last time. I think they had red singlets. They looked all baby faced. Yep.
I love actually going back to the Briscoes now. Back to the Briscoes, but going back to the conversation I had earlier with Bruce Pritchard's podcast. They're talking about WrestleMania 18 and the lead up to Taker Flair.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about it, and they were like, oh, the Briscoes were in this video as well. And I'm like, okay. And then Conrad had like elaborated on what he meant by the Briscoes, and he was talking about Jay and Mark. And I was like, oh, why don't I remember that? So I looked back to Undertaker beating up David Flair in the gym, and I go, oh, they are there. And it just blew my mind. Like, and I kind of went down like a deep dive of like wrestlers now back in WWE as extras, and like seeing MJF get pushed by like Samoa Joe.
I saw that. Yeah.
Matt Jackson get beat up by a random guy on SmackDown back in the Fist era. And I'm just like, oh my God, how did I never notice this?
It's funny because you don't notice because you don't know who they are at the time. Sometimes, most of the time, unless you were really deeply following independent wrestling at the time. And a lot of times, let's be serious, independent wrestling, it's your area the most, like the northeastern part, and the guys that are really breaking out. It's a little bit different nowadays, obviously, with
it's
internet,
everything everywhere,
live streams and stuff, but it's crazy and amazing to think about. It's like, wow, I had no idea that was that guy, and it's like one time I was talking to this guy and he ended up being in a skit with, what the fuck is his name? Tony Nese on Raw or something like that, where he got, he was trying to take a picture of himself and a selfie, I guess you could say. And Tony Nese came up and took a picture, and he's like, "Here, your girlfriend will like this one better." So, and I was like, "Oh, that was you," So it's just funny.
It's always cool to watch like older episodes of like TV, and you start like spotting these guys.
Yeah.
And then you go, "Oh, look at where he's at now." It's cool to see. Carmelo Hayes. Carmelo Hayes is a prime example of that.
And I think I mentioned it. I might have mentioned it the last time you came on here that one of the last times I saw him on an indie show was a Northeast show, North Haven Fair against JT Dunn, and at the North Haven Fair, and it was a phenomenal match. And then it's like
Christian Casanova.
And then and then it was like a year later he was signed to NXT or something to that effect. Maybe a year and a half.
I think when we talked last, I talked about how him and Phoenix stole the show, and then Dijak got annoyed because I told Carmelo he'd be the future. He was like, "What am I, chopped liver?" I'm like, "No, I think you're great, but this guy just stole the show." Like, Like, and of course, he's being in the ring and field, but take two to tango. And Carmelo Hayes held his fucking own, man. That guy's a star.
Yeah, and he's only getting bigger. He legitimately is.
He's
going to be a big star for that company. Watch, because I mean, they're giving him the ball, basically. You know what I mean? He's really breaking out in that company.
I really hope that when he does, at the time that he does get called to the main roster, that they just continue to elevate his career, because that guy is one of those 1 in 1,000 type wrestlers.
Yeah,
generational wrestler.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
A lot, man. This, like, going back to the conversation we had earlier, a lot of good fucking wrestling in the Northeast, man, and a lot of the guys taking over different companies are from this area. If you really do look at the picture and the landscape of wrestling, how many guys from this Northeast area are on top of the world in different promotions?
It's amazing to see our guys making it out there and being on TV weekly, whether it be the mainstream television. I mean, obviously Richard Holiday was with MLW for a number of years. Now he's a free agent, and it's up in the air. Where's he going to be?
One of the first person that came to mind when I started this conversation. Richard Holiday, was the main guy in Major League Wrestling.
Yeah,
main villain.
Yeah,
MJF.
And I'm wondering what's going to happen with Holiday now that he's a free agent. But I have a feeling he's going to end up on TV very soon, and it's not going to be for any small company either. He's going to end up in a big company. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you heard anything. I haven't heard anything.
Listen. I don't. I know I've met Holiday maybe twice.
Yeah.
Not even trying to say that I have any type of like close connection with Rich Holiday, because I don't.
Right.
If I'm a betting man, I'd say he's all elite by next year.
It's interesting that you say that, because I sit here and wonder about that, because the guy, he's got star written all over him. He really does.
Absolutely. He can go. And, don't get me wrong. He can go anywhere.
My thing is this. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I personally just think it would better suit him, maybe. Going all elite.
I've always said that he looks like he's got a WWE body, literally.
Oh yeah.
Because and if you think about it, I think he's perfect for WWE. And I'm not going to say that he wouldn't do great in AEW, that he wouldn't sign or that it wouldn't make sense. But the thing with AEW is, how many guys do they have on the roster? Would he get lost in the shuffle? You know what I mean? Tony does not seem to be firing anybody. He just lets them ride out their contract.
Do you think he goes to NXT and has a run before he goes main roster? Or
my thing is this. My thing is this with that guy. I don't even think I mean, of course, they'll probably put him in NXT, but I don't even think he needs that, to be honest with you.
I don't think he does either.
Because I said that, and I just, was it 4 or 5 years ago watching this guy? And now, in the last 2-3 years, the guy looks like he's molded for WWE TV.
I've told plenty of people, I'm so happy I was wrong about Richard Holiday.
Yeah.
Because I remember, watching him at Wrestle Gym and go, I don't know.
He was different then. He was different then. That doesn't count.
No. Listen, again, if we go back to the conversation we had earlier with growth. That's one of those guys that proved that growth is everything. Right. He grew, he matured, and now, he's gonna be huge. Coming back off the MLW runs, he's already booking bigger shows than what he was doing before. That guy's gonna go somewhere, and I give it by the end of this year, he's either gonna be all elite or he's gonna be in WWE.
Yeah,
I don't give him to 2024. By the end of this year, he'll have a contract.
Yeah, I guarantee. I'm with you there, because I've been saying that for since I've seen the guy. I'm surprised that when he was when his contract was being discussed the last time, that he didn't end up in, say, AEW. Actually, I was kind of leaning towards AEW, because that's the time when the Dynasty was still a thing, and MJF had just gone over. But
I think he made a smart move, though.
Yeah.
Because him going to AEW, yeah, he could have had the dynasty there or whatever, if that was even the plan. But
Right.
him staying here in MLW and, kind of like branching out, being the solo star, the big villain of the story, whatever, having his run with Hammerstone, I think he bet on himself, and I think he, for the most part, he knocked it out the park. I would only guess that because of the cancer, that things didn't necessarily end the way he probably wanted to. Again,
Right.
that's all me just assuming, but I don't know. But I think him coming out of it and seeing already where he's going to be wrestling over the next couple of weeks says a lot about what he plans on doing coming out of the MLW. And to be honest, I'm actually very intrigued and excited to see what happens.
Yeah, me too. I'm definitely very, very interested because it's paying attention to social media, basically, to see what announcements come, in the news sites.
I think that's also one of the crazier things about wrestling nowadays is social media. Social media, as much as I'm not a fan of social media, I really don't like it. I don't really care for it anymore, and that could just be my old age kicking in. But social media is at that place where like you can promote yourself at the highest levels.
I don't disagree with you, but it's one of those things where I'm constantly on it as well, and I see so much disgust in it and annoyance because I'm just like, because guess what? I use it. Obviously, you see that I use it as a tool. You know what I mean? To share the show, to share events that I'm a part of, and I go on there and I just see people crying, complaining, talking all sorts of random crap. And I was like, God, why? Like, first off, most things people just post on social media shouldn't be posted on social media to begin with. And that's the thing that I just cannot stand.
I learned that the hard way a couple of years ago.
Yeah. I thought about deleting it, but how the hell are people going to find the show? You know what I mean? So
and that's kind of like I had that like coming to earth moment a couple weeks ago. I kind of just like I had a really rough day and I kind of just deleted all my socials, and somebody was like, yo dude, you can't be doing that. And I was kind of like, all right. So I'm like trying to utilize I kind of just needed to be like left alone for a day.
Yeah.
And like I just didn't want to be bothered. I didn't want anybody bothering me, and I should just hit silent and turn off my phone, but in case of an emergency I need my phone, so I couldn't do that. I was like, I'm just gonna delete everything. I don't want to be bothered. Ended up turning everything back on because again, we do have stuff we need to promote. But so that's what's probably gonna be my social media be used for going forward. Probably just promotional stuff. And my daughter's beautiful, but like I don't really care for it anymore. Social media is really, really bad. Like people just like you said,
just
complain and complain and put people down, and there's no uplifting of anybody. Like you got your people out there who share their peers and their peers' promotions and where they're going, but for the most part, everybody goes on there and just talks down to people. It's not healthy for the wrestling community. It's not even healthy for a regular community.
And the internet wrestling fans are the worst. I hate to tell you.
Yeah.
I know I'm one of them, but I don't sit there and just like, I just stopped commenting on stuff.
Like you're not one of the bad ones. I've seen bad. I've seen real bad. And like I even have old friends who go on Facebook to talk about how much they hate wrestling now, but yet you're like, so why are you talking? Why are you watching? If you hate it so much, why are you watching?
Yeah. And let me tell you, that was me 20 years ago, 15 years ago. You know what I mean? It's just, guess what? There's the channel button that goes up and down on the remote. That's all I got to do. And that's what I discovered. And honestly, it's the thing with the current WWE. Okay. I don't care for it. I used to complain about it a lot, but I don't even turn it on anymore because it doesn't interest me. So that's all I need to do is just don't watch it if I'm not interested in it.
Yeah,
or AEW too. I want to throw them in the lump as well.
Even AEW, like I had a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and we were like, "Yo, we don't even watch AEW like that anymore." I don't. I just watch clips, or if anything, it's background noise while I'm doing something else.
I'll watch the pay-per-views for both companies because those were more concentrated. Excuse me, on real shows, you know. But the weekly TV, it's just for both companies have just gotten to me so much that I can't. I prefer to watch a straight wrestling show beginning to end. You know what I mean? Instead of just watching a bunch of bullshit.
For people like us, we watch so much wrestling and we're so oversaturated with wrestling that we almost have to pick and choose what we watch. And, you know, not to get to the point where we're now wrestling is stagnant and we're just watching the same thing over and over again. We have to kind of like, okay, I'll watch GCW this time, and then next time I'll watch MLW, and then I won't watch MLW because I don't want to be too stuck on that. So now I'm watching House of Glory, you know, and because if not, you're watching the same thing over and over again.
Okay. Yeah. No. And one of the things with that is it's just I'll watch the GCW events thoroughly. You know, I do enjoy them for the most part.
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff on there. Don't get me wrong. There's going to be a lot of stuff on there, like we were just talking about the deathmatch stuff that I'm not necessarily going to care about. I don't watch stuff that I don't particularly care for, and if it's on, I usually do something else in the room while waiting for something else, or if it's a main event, it's fine. GCW is killing it though, as far as quality shows, because they have a mixed style of wrestling. Basically, similar to ECW, they had all different stuff between luchadors, hardcore stuff, and straight wrestling.
The cool thing about GCW too is that depending on the territory that they go to, they bring in people from that area. So like let's say they did a Midwest run last weekend, so they brought a lot of Midwest guys onto the town that they don't normally have. When they come to the Northeast, they're gonna have a lot of Northeast talent, you know, on their show that they don't normally have when they go down south. Yeah, and that's also cool too because then you start seeing new people that you don't normally know about.
Available on all streaming platforms. It's professional wrestling's greatest, largest, privately owned wrestling library. All the classic hits, flips, slams, and pins of yesteryear are on one place. It's Ultimate Classic Wrestling. Check out the Nature Boy Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, Mr. USA Tony Atlas, Tito Santana, Rick Martel, a who's who of professional wrestling's greatest spotlight stars ever to grace the squared circle, all in one place. Grab the best seat in the house for memories and mayhem on Ultimate Classic Wrestling.
GCW is good for stuff like that because of their platform utilizes a lot of homegrown talent whenever they're in that area.
Just think about they were in Fight Night Brooklyn, and that's when they brought in the SAT, like last week or whatever. And the one time they brought in Jeff Jarrett for a run, which I thought was beautiful because I'm a Jeff Jarrett fan. I know a lot of people just can't stand that guy, but I love the guy, and it's just I think the guy's got probably one of the smartest guys as far as wrestling business goes. Besides the fact that he put the belt on himself a million times, but that's a whole other story. So,
yeah, but I mean, name one person who didn't.
You got to be able to. I mean, you got to be able to trust your talent, right? So, who could he trust? Himself. So.
Name one company that didn't.
Yeah, you're right.
Vince did it. Fucking Jeff Jarrett has done it. Hell, WCW put their champion on an actor.
I feel bad for that guy. I really honestly do because he's still. I don't.
David Arquette's been able to stay relevant in people's lives way longer than he probably should have.
Yeah, he's. I mean, people shit on him a lot, but he was just doing what he was told. You know what I mean? And that's nothing. And did you watch his documentary?
I was just about to say that.
Great documentary, man. Great documentary.
Amazing documentary.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm no one to disrespect the name of David Arquette. This man had the balls to get in the ring with Nick Gage.
Damn near lost his life. I mean, he got a nerve,
lost his life.
Punctured a vein in his neck or something, right?
I think the man has done everything he's needed to do to rectify his name and to clear his name of all bad doing in wrestling. The guy is in the records for being a former WCW champion. I believe he's earned that right. Leave him alone.
100%. So, Harry, do we got anything else we want to talk about here today before we wrap it up?
No, just touch back. BST running at Two Roads.
Yep.
July 1st. Again, main event, Ichiban versus Bobby Orlando. And we have announced a mixed tag between La Chica Clara Carreras and Mantequilla versus Dan the Man and Brother Greatness with Stan Michaels in their corner. And we are going to have an announcement on the Tag Team Championships very soon by CC. So look forward for that. And I look forward to seeing you guys on July 1st, man. It's going to be a stellar show.
And go to BST Wrestling on Instagram for all your latest announcements. And don't forget to check us out as well. And check out Harry on Instagram as well. So
I'm all over the place.
All over the place. Harry, I want to thank you for coming back. And we're going to do this again.
Pleasure. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. You let me know when you want me to come back on. I'll be more than glad to come back on.